A lot of online masculinity gurus will tell you that women are responsible for everything that's wrong with the world. And if you go back to traditional societies like Saudi Arabia or Mexico, they have their women like this. And then you go to one of these traditional societies like Costa Rica, and it turns out to be the opposite. The women have their men like this. My name's Louis Angel, and I make videos on self-improvement for sensitive men, emotional men, feminine men. You get the idea. If you're not one of those, you're still welcome to this channel. And we're going to be talking about my experience in traditional countries and if it lives up to all that macho manosphere self-improvement type stuff. And so if you've been exposed to red pill or manosphere type stuff like me, you've heard all these people say like, oh, when you go to Saudi Arabia, the wives there are the happiest you've ever seen. Like, people are happiest in traditional societies. And they sort of treat traditional societies as this monolith where everyone acts the same, and they treat modern societies as this monolith where everyone is depressed. Well, I've actually been to a traditional society. My family's from Costa Rica, and I go there like over the holidays for vacation. And over these holidays, the ones that just passed, I went for vacation. And I heard people telling stories they've always told, but this time, since I was more social, we told more stories. And also this time I looked at the stories with more of a lens, more of a critical lens from all I've learned about, like, you know, modern feminism and also like the manosphere. And there are quite a few things that surprised me. One is that my mom told me that back when they were kids, it was very common for young men, once they came of age, like 18, 17, 16, something like that, that their friends would take them to prostitutes to lose their virginity. And that she even thinks like someone close to her lost it that way. This traditional country, and they were taking each other to prostitutes once they turned 18. Another thing was, this one is just anecdotal evidence, but if you're like me, then, you know, every now and then when you get depressed about women, you sort of develop a victim complex and say that it's all their fault. And you hear, it's very common in the manosphere to hear all these statistics and data about how women leave their husbands, women are the ones who initiate most divorces, and, like, you know, the stereotypical scenario of a guy's wife and kids leaves him and he commits suicide, whereas you hardly ever hear that about a woman. And yeah, all that stuff is definitely true. Like, it gives one side of the story, but there's also the other side of the story. And I know this is just anecdotal evidence, but I started to think, do I actually know anything that's happened like that in my life? Do I know any women who have left their men? And actually, no. In fact, the only instances where something like that has happened in my family has actually been the man leaving the woman. In both cases, I'm happy to say that I'm related by blood to the woman and not the man. But yeah, there's two instances in my family of two of my aunts getting left by their husbands for other women. One of them did it multiple times. The other one did it, like, I don't remember exactly, but... And this is in a traditional society where you expect the woman to leave and divorce, but no, apparently not. So, don't, like, in order to extrapolate that, I would say, do not confuse what people online say for experience. Go out there into the real world and get experience. Stop, like, listening to what Andrew Tate says and what Hamza is saying, what Iman Gaji, listening to what all these people say about women does not count as experience with women, because it's not. You're just listening to what other people have to say. The other example, this one is actually directly related to femdom, so it may interest you. I have this uncle, like sister of he's related to me by marriage. He's the husband of one of my grandma's sisters. So yeah, we'll call him uncle. So I have this uncle. He's very old, so you could assume he's very traditional. Like, he goes back way, like, to the grandparents' times. And just to show you how traditional these people were at the time, like, my eldest uncle and aunt, one of the eldest, my grandparents when they were dating, would not let them in the same room together without at least one of my siblings being there with them. They did not trust them to be in the same room. And then at this one school dance where they were dancing together and they had their bodies close, one of their sisters or brothers reported it to my grandparents, and they got in trouble when they got home. So, very traditional society. So this uncle, he said it jokingly, but when I was there, he called himself his wife's puppy. He said, hey, I'm her puppy. she's my owner. Obviously, I don't think they meant it in a kinky way, but like, you could tell, like, on one hand, he was the one who worked, so he was the breadwinner, but on the other hand, like, you could also kind of tell, like, she was more knowledgeable, she was more smart, like, she called the shots, he was a bit of a goofball, a clown, even if he was the one working and bringing in the bread. But yeah, so, don't be so hung up on all these traditional, like, on all these, like, oh, girls normally aren't into femdom. Like, you can work with it. Women who are open will work with you. I have this cousin in Costa Rica, again, more traditional than the US. This femdom girl I was with at the time, she made some drawings about us that were sort of had femdom vibes. I sent her the drawings when she asked for pictures, and she was like, oh my god, that's so sweet. These were drawings depicting me in, like, not outright kinky, but like a somewhat, like, because of the position, submissive position to the girl. And it was like, she didn't mind. She thought it was great. So it was like, yeah. Like, don't get so hung up on these labels. There was one other thing I had to say that was, my arm's falling asleep, not directly related. But yeah, I'm not gonna waste your time because I don't want to try to sit here and remember what it was. So that's today's video. Don't get so hung up on labels. The world isn't black and white. The world is a bit more gray. Like, oh, this girl's not into femdom. This girl is into femdom. Like, there's a really big in-between area, and there's a lot of girls who, if they are open and considerate enough and thoughtful enough and secure enough, are willing to work with you. Maybe you won't get everything you want, but you can get quite a lot of it. So I hope you learned something from this video, and remember, it's not learning if your behavior doesn't change, or in this case, your mindset. See ya, brother.